I was 21 years old in 1986, and I broke my neck in a car accident. And I should have died. I was in the hospital, kind of like, what am I going to do? I'm a surfer, and the doctor's saying I'll never surf again. And so I turned to yoga in 1986, 2 weeks out of a halo brace, much to my family's chagrin. I was back in the water surfing and doing yoga. And the doctor didn't think I was going to live, let alone be doing yoga. So yoga kind of woke me up enough in my early 20s to say, well, I need to go back to school and study nutrition, because at that point I had a bachelor's degree in business. And so that was 86. So from 86 to 99, I was basically working my craft and getting my degree in nutrition. And then I moved to Mexico in 2000 and was owning a restaurant down there. And I got drawn back in the year 2000, and that's when I started hearing about the Weston Price and Nourishing Traditions, specifically Sally Fallon's book. So once I hear something 3 times, sort of like magic, I take action on it. So probably from 2000, 2001 to 2002, 2003, it's like, Weston Price, Sally Fallon, you got to check this stuff out. So sometime between 2002 and 2005, I ended up kind of going in full bore. And I think nutrition and physical degeneration should be required reading for kids, personally, in an easier manner to read, of course. But Price makes it just so clear. He made it so clear to me and validated all my previous studies with Bernard Jensen and all the colon therapists and my acupuncture teachers and my herbal medicine teachers. It was just astounding to see, like, everybody is pointing at this phenomenon that I call natural law now. And Price was pointing at natural law. And you can't avoid natural law. It's cause and effect. So I think Price and, the founder of Standard Process, Royal Lee, and Bernard Jensen and Weston Price were all meeting. They were all meeting in little secret meetings with study groups and helping each other. And that's what I'm bringing back to medicine and health is study groups. We get together and, like, I don't know everything. I'm not even going to pretend to know everything. So you put a couple of smart brains together, you get a lot more out of that for a patient especially. And so I really valued Price's work, and the fact that hearing that he had collaborated with some other great men of his time really elevates him in my world. So after the Weston Price Foundation, I wanted to learn a little more because I was heavy into a massage practice and not doing as much nutrition, and I started noticing people were being misdiagnosed. And that's when I turned more to lab work and endocrinology and iridology and sclerology and tongue analysis. And I've developed a system now that works so well that I can tell you what's going to be on your lab work when I look at your eyes and tongue. Any one of you. You can send me photographs of your eyes and tongue, and I would say, you're going to see this on your lab work and this here, and you probably got this symptom there and this organ here and this thing here. It's just astounding how we don't need CAT scans and ultrasounds and MRIs. You can see it in the eyes and in the tongue. There's a map. Even the hands are a map. And if you know enough of the map, you don't necessarily need the lab work. So where I sit now is where I wanted to be 25 years ago, as a rookie in the mid 90s. And I like having that beginner mind, but at the same time knowing I've got a lot of tools to draw upon. In a fluid stream or an air stream, there's a certain amount of particulate matter in the fluid or the air. And the more particulate matter, the more stress it is on our filtering organs. And another key point, just as a broad overview of the situation, is smoke is full of carbon molecules. And carbon is an acidic molecule. It forms carbonic acid, so it's going to stress your pH mechanisms also. And the final thing to deal with smoke is you have burnt toxic matter potentially, plastics, heavy metals, even radiation damaged items could be floating around in that quote unquote smoke. And that's a further burden on the detoxification mechanisms, i.e. the liver mainly is where your main detoxification center is. If you leave this call thinking of your liver as a guy standing behind a counter and the toxins are the customers, then the more customers the liver has to deal with, the more the line goes out the door. And the more the line goes out the door, the more symptoms the human has. With that in mind, then I made this newsletter, and that sort of was the prompt for all this, was a newsletter I put out to my my people. And it really stirred up a lot because no one had done anything like this. And to me, it was just common sense. Like, well, when you're dealing with, with health is more process than it is chemistry. Chemistry is a byproduct of the life process. And we become addicted to numbers in chemistry, but your lab work is nothing more than a snapshot of your blood at a moment in time. That's all it is. It's not you at all. Just like a photograph of you running a race is not in fact you running the race. If anybody said so, you would call them nuts. So what the more important thing to me as a practitioner is look at the process that's happening. So if there's smoke building up, then you're going to have more particles for your body to deal with, and you'll show on your tongue first and foremost. Your tongue will swell if your digestive system isn't clearing particulates well. So a swollen tongue, you know, and you know it's swollen if you can't see your teeth. And mine's always swollen. I've been dealing with it most of my life. I can't see my bottom teeth. One of the things to keep in mind during the process of when you're triggered is just to be aware of what's happening inside of ourselves without running away from it. And generally fear is something that's kind of in the human soup right now, if you will. So if you have fear running, then in Chinese medicine, they have this lovely thing about they have organs and emotions attached to each other. So the organ of fear is the kidney and the adrenal. And one woman here in the San Lorenzo Valley says the psoas is the organ, is the muscle of fear. So if you think all those in common, what do they all have in common? They're called kind of down the bottom of the pelvis. So if you're running some fear, it's best to just acknowledge it and not even try and change it, because it's natural to have fear. One of the old Taoist sayings around this is, if you don't know when to fear, you are in fearful danger. So that's called the right fear. So it's normal to fear what's happening around us right now. Don't try and should yourself out of any fear. How do you get through fear? By using your will. There's a scary dog ahead, but it only appears scary. I need to use my will to push through the fear. That's an important point to remember. Next slide. Smoke. So generally, I'm going into solution here first, but I'll go to the next slide and talk about smoke a little more depth. So there's a few herbs in terms of, when you think of smoke, you want to think cilia, right? That's why you get boogers in your nose. The cilia, the nose is beating all the bad stuff towards the front. Your lungs have cilia in them. Your gut has cilia in it. Your skin has cilia called body hairs. There's hairs all in your body. And so if you look at plant morphology meaning plant form, then plants that have hairs will nourish your own hair growth. So Mullen is my top plant for this. And we can go to Mullen. Let's see, stop the presentation real quick. And I'm going to, oh, actually, no, we're going to go, never mind. So here's Mullen right here. This is a top view of one that's grown in my garden, and you can see the Fibonacci sequence on how it grows also. It grows in a spiralic pattern. This plant I've used for any lung condition. You can't go wrong using this plant. It's easy to grow. It's a weed. Once you get it going and get seeds on the property, you'll never be rid of it. It'll be your friend for your entire eternity. This is a plant worthy of growing. It has a lot of properties, folks. Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, make it easy on yourself by any means necessary. I have it in an alcohol tincture. I have it in an apple cider vinegar tincture. Apple cider vinegar makes a good medium for tinctures, but it won't last as long as vodka. You've got 1 year to 2 years with apple cider vinegar tops. A good vodka tincture might last you 10 years. At room temperature, at least. So this is a large database, and this is the page for Mullen here. So this is what it looks like, folks. It has these really cute yellow flowers. It grows straight up in the air. I just love watching this plant grow. So I'm going to focus on this plant because it's so important. Oh, what did I just do? Holy mackerel. Mullen. There we go. So let's go down to what its uses are. So constituents, you know, saponins are kind of like soap. So it's the saponins and essential oils. So the saponins are allowing your cells to take in the nutrition of the plant easier. And flavonoids should be something to think about, like bioflavonoids. Flavonoids are related to vitamin C. So this plant, the leaf, has vitamin C in it. See the mucilage? Mucilage there, really important to nourish the yin, or the the mucus, because the smoke's very drying. The properties part here, if you look at that, pectoral means chest, expectorant, see? Helps spasms in the lungs, so it will help an asthmatic. Anodyne means lowers pain. Demulcent means it's slimy. Removes excess water, is diuretic. It's a sedative, so see, anti-mucus, anti-catarrhal. So see all these great properties for one plant? And look at this right here. One of the primary herbs for any lung problem, including whooping cough. You can't go wrong with this plant. If you do too much, you might get a little nauseous, but generally that doesn't occur. And so you only need a little bit. See, if you're making a tea with the leaves, you only need a couple of teaspoons of the dried leaf. And it looks like you can also use it for a diuretic for UTIs and colitis too. Look at that. So you need a plant with hairs. Another thing about smoke is when you burn something, you're going to get a lot of carbon. Carbon is that black soot. Like when people smoke cigarettes, they load their lungs with carbon. So when there's burning trees and burning items around us, that's carbon. And then when you have a lot of carbon going in your fluid and airstream, it's going to clog them up, as the slide says. If you don't have Mullen around, any plant with hairs could work. Borage is generally a good weed, and comfrey is another one. I'm sure that others in the chat box, you guys can type in other ones that you've seen. Plants with hairs in general are helpful. But I'm giving you the best from 25 years of learning herbal medicine. So what is smoke? So there's 5 main elements that make up most of us, most of what we are, and most of what we eat. And those are carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, sulfur, and nitrogen out of the periodic table of the elements. All of your protein, carbon, fat are made of those 5 elements. Most of your body is made of those 5 elements. And if you look at carbon, hydrogen, and sulfur, they're all acid forming. Sulfuric acid, hydrochloric acid, carbonic acid. Oxygen is an incredibly reactive molecule, and nitrogen generally goes into protein synthesis. So what you're dealing with is a lot of excessive carbon. So that's going to cause a pH issue. And then you've got this carbonic acid, and that's a lung and a kidney stress. So one imperative during this is to drink enough fluid. Because if you have more junk in your waste stream, you want to make sure you're diluting your waste stream more. This is another interesting thing that I came across in Chinese medicine, is how they pair organs together. So remember, in the Orient, they think a lot different than we do in the West. They think much differently than we do. So we can't assume they think like we do. So this thinking of how the body works and this pairing system is, well, what are the colon's paired with the lungs? What the heck do the lung and the colons have in common? Well, they both take in and they both let go. They take in and they let go. The colon takes in water, sends it back over to the liver. As you can see on the slide, the liver on the slide would appear on the left side below the left lung and the stomach. So actually, there it is right there, the liver. So there's little veins that go from the liver and the colon to that go from that to the liver, called the hepatic portal veins. And if those get full and sludgy, that's why you see the man with the spare tire sticking out, that big stomach. That's a portal vein problem. The fluid's not going back to his liver because the pipes are all clogged up from the intestines to the liver. No one talks about this in medicine, and I'm going to keep talking about this until my last breath, is the hepatic portal veins are a major cause of breathing difficulties also. Why? Because if your intestines get full of water, then it presses up against the diaphragm and you can't get a deep breath anymore. Like when you overeat, what does that feel like? Hard to get a deep breath, isn't it? So it's a really important point to recognize that if those portal veins are clogged, then you've got to deal with that. And most of us that have hemorrhoids, varicose veins, big bloated belly, uterine problems, ovarian problems, prostate problems, testicle problems, did I say varicose veins? Then generally that's a portal vein issue at its root. And the fastest way to deal with that, those clients that have worked with me know, it's kind of a trigger for a lot of people, but it's enemas. The coffee enema is the single easiest way to declog your portal veins. The next best is with herbs and with castor oil packs on the belly. Castor oil packs. Edgar Casey had some good information about how to use castor oil. You know, some of you I know are into that guy. So by getting your colon and your portal veins working better, then you're actually going to breathe easier and the smoke's going to affect you less. I have been completely unaffected by this smoke. Completely unaffected. I know it doesn't bother me one bit. It hasn't affected my quality of life at all. It's because I do these things. I do enemas regularly. I take these herbs. I keep myself clean. I don't drink coffee. I don't eat wheat. You know, it's like, because I don't want to suffer. And so part of each of our suffering is our inability to see, like, I probably shouldn't have eaten that. I probably shouldn't have done that. Generally, in 25 years of doing clinical work, most people's troubles are causing by their own habits and addictions. And that's for each of us to decide to figure out what we need to stop. Because if you don't stop doing it and there's smoke around and your life's in jeopardy potentially, you better stop that habit. And you all know what that is. You know, mine used to be overeating. I loved food. But then I realized my love of food was actually stuffing my emotions. I didn't want to feel my bad emotions. So I would just eat instead. Anybody out there like that? I'm sure there's a few. So it's important to acknowledge that you can help your lungs by helping your colon. If you go see the acupuncturist, you could even ask them, hey, if I have a lung problem, will you use the colon points, the large intestine points? Yes, they will. They will treat a lung problem with large intestine points sometimes. Then your next thing in terms of is your lymph stream. So it's important, all your cells in your body have to take in and let go, all of them. So there's a live blood cell analysis. You know, people and they analyze live blood. They pick your skin and they put a little blood on a slide and then they analyze it under a microscope. And what people that have done that have seen, Ingrid Naiman specifically, who did this 30 years, here's her quote. I've been doing live blood cell analysis for 30 years, and I am convinced individual cells have individual personalities. End quote. Just take that in for a minute. You're the captain of the cell ship and the bug ship. Your cells are outnumbered 100 to 1,000 to 1 by microbes living in your body. So you're the captain of the cell ship and the bug ship. You better make good choices for your ship, for your shipmates. So your lymph stream is where your cells literally poop. They take in and they poop out into the lymph stream. So if your cells are toxic or you're toxic, then your cells are bathed in a toxic lymph stream. So there's the herbs that work for this better than others. I have identified some of the easier ones to grow are cleavers, figwort, and red root. Cleavers and figwort are ridiculously easy to grow, and red root is our local lilac ceanothus that grows out all around the city. It has little blue and white flowers, and it's the root of that plant. Very difficult to process. It's very hard like a rock. And then poke root, poke is a very interesting plant. Very interesting plant. Looks like a little 10-foot palm tree. It's really fun to grow. And that's what we're going to see in the next photo here. This is poke root, folks. And look at that root. Doesn't that look like a little human? Just a little bit. Isn't that fascinating? And there's little berries, and our ancestors would take the purple dye out of those berries and make dye with it. They would use it for ink and dye. The Indians especially. Not toxic petroleum-based ink like we have here in the, the United States of America. So these natural plant inks sometimes work better than the petroleum-based inks. That's a good example. You see the berries kind of right here in the middle. Really interesting plant. But I think locally, your single easiest one is figwort. It's always growing in the mountains. Anybody living in the valley, anybody living where there's mountains, it generally is in mountain streams. It looks like stinging nettles, except it doesn't have the stingers. It's a bit like nettles, and it has little red flowers. I'm sorry I don't have a picture of figwort here. But you can go to Google Images. It's a great place to look up herbs. So this process we're talking about is diaphoresis. And if you do an arrow pointing up and 2 arrows pointing diagonally and 2 arrows pointing out to the sides, I can't do it now, but that's the process of diaphoresis, going from the inside to the outside, i.e. open up your pores and sweat. So when you eat those hot peppers, that causes you to sweat, right? So mullein isn't really good for this process. Mullein isn't a diaphoretic plant. The plants that are on here that our ancestors used, the main one was elderflower. So the elderberry, in my world, I don't ever use with an active cold or flu, even though it's high in vitamin C, because berry energy is astringent energy. It closes the pores of the body down. You want your pores open to sweat out the toxins. So if you're going to use elderberry, it's the wrong energy. It's a better food in between illnesses to get your immunity up, due to the flavanols and the vitamin C and whatnot. But the elderflower is more indicated when you have an active cold or flu going on. You'll have much better results using the elderflower versus the berry in an active infection. For kids, if you got an uptight child, lemon balm isn't listed here. Lemon balm and catnip are excellent for children that have colds and flus. Catnip is really sedating for the human. You know how the cats get all freaked out on it? If I do strong enough catnip tea, I'll get loopy. It's really fun. Try it for yourself. Strong catnip tea. Oh my God. Wonderful diaphoretic and sedative. Ginger is warming, so you don't want to use ginger if you look at your tongue coat when you have problems or not. If it's yellowish or orangish or greenish coating on the tongue, that's heat. They call that damp heat or wind heat in Chinese. So ginger is better when you have a lot of clear or white mucus, which is what we call damp cold. Peppermint's great. The perilla or the shiso red leaf is good. Chamomile is good in a pinch. Any peppermint, any mint is good. And then the holy basil, which, let's go down to the next. This is the elder tree, but I'm gonna go to tulsi really quick. This is tulsi. And over in the valley, even if you planted some now, you might get a harvest. My Indian clients just, they swear that in India, everybody has a tulsi plant, a neem tree and a tulsi plant. So it's like a universal medicine. That's why I said at least 10 health uses. This plant will help your adrenals. It will help you sweat out toxins. It will help your stress management. It'll kill bugs like you can't believe. It makes a great pesto. I could go on and on and on and on about this plant. And look how pretty it is. Very pretty, and it smells unbelievable. Highly suggest investing in some tulsi, even in a pot outside your door. I cannot say enough good. So if you were to make a single blend, you could go tulsi and figwort and mullen for your smoke trouble. You could also do mullen and elderflower and red root. We'll go back again. There's the elder tree. Now look at that tree. This tree was revered by our ancestors. Why do you think it's called elder, folks? It's the elder tree. In permaculture, when you study how the plants communicate via the soil, because the plants are communicating via the roots and the mycelium underneath the plant there, down at the bottom here. And the elder tree is said to be the one that says what resources go to what plants under the soil. It's the manager, the supervisor of the network under the ground. And that's fascinating. So is the wormwood plant. So it's a very strong herb. I can't say enough about using this plant in all of its glory. Oh, back up here for a second. So your lymph stream plant. So you could do, I'd say the three most effective lymphatic herbs here are the figwort, the red root, and the poke. And if you do poke root tincture, you literally only need 5 or 10 drops. This herb is too strong for more than that. 5 to 10 drops. All the other herbs you can get away with, a couple droppers full on this one here. And mullein, you can take a whole teaspoon. Just so you know the conversions, 1 teaspoon is 5 droppers full in a tincture. And 1 dropper full is 1 ml, 1 milliliter. So 5 milliliters is a teaspoon. So if I say something later on, you guys, so you kind of know the nomenclature. Generally, it's back to that vitality check. So many of you have kids, and some of you remember being a kid. You know when your mom asks you to clean up the room when you're tired? Are you going to do it? No. So if your cells are tired, they're not going to detox well. So if your blood pressure lying down is 120, you stand up, it goes to 100, no coffee enemas for you. Because it takes vitality to cleanse the body out. The cells are tired. That's what the falling blood pressure is telling you. So it's highly conditional. If you feel tired, no coffee enemas. You got some vitality? Yeah, do some coffee enemas. So if in the Gershon cancer system, if you have cancer, they might want you doing 2 or 3 coffee enemas a day. And I'll tell you, as a guy that I tried to do 3 a day for 3 days. Well, I got 3 in the first day, absolutely exhausted by the third one. The second day, I barely got 2 in, so there's 5. On the third day, I barely got 1 in, so I got 6 in 2 days, and I was wiped out. I mean, I was just exhausted, and I got a lot of vitality. So I would say, if you feel better after doing a coffee enema, then maybe do another one the next day. But as soon as you don't feel as good, that diminishing returns, then maybe take a few days off. I'm about once a week to every 2 weeks. And I know I need to do one because my thoughts turn from bright and shiny and loving to dark. The green coffee generally is stronger than the roasted. Generally, it's more diuretic. So I would recommend green coffee for somebody that's got a lot of weight on them. If you're skinny, I don't recommend the green coffee. The green coffee is for the big people, the roasted coffee. And then as far as the roasted coffee, if you're going to go buy something off the shelf, it's got to be organic. And usually it's light roast best or medium roast. You do not want to do an enema with dark roast coffee. It's too well cooked. The brand I use is by Premier Research Labs, and it's called Premier Coffee. It's literally an enema roasted coffee. It's made for enemas. Laugh out loud. Premier Research Labs, Premier Coffee. It is a coffee made for enemas, folks. And I have used it to drink too. It's not bad. There's another one that I think David Wolf, there is another brand of enema coffee, Pachamama, or I forgot the other one, but I'm so happy with the Premier Research Lab brand that I just generally stick with them. So no dark roast, 100% organic. And if you're going to buy it from the health food store, you want a single origin source of coffee, not a blend. The single origin is generally pure, and ideally they're doing their, what do they call that? The fair trade farming too. And so the farmer's making some money. The number 1 food for diaphoresis and clearing particles out of the body is radishes. So for the layperson, if you remember radishes and lemon, like grate some radish, add some lemon and olive oil, that is an excellent remedy for almost any congestion issue. I don't like radishes. Tough. They are the best medicine for decongesting mucus, candida, the intestines. I cannot say enough good about radishes. It's one of my top 10 foods recommended. So for the layperson, you can't go wrong with radishes, almost ever. The other one is seaweeds. Seaweed is really good for the irritable dry, that end of the cold, the dry cough and the irritable, like the dryness. Seaweed's great for that. So is comfrey and so is marshmallow. So for the layperson, they might be, oh, I don't know if I'm going to get any of that. Well, even seaweed's probably too much for them. Then you want to think foods that are slimy, like okra. What else is slimy out there? Cucumbers are good nourishing for the yin this time of year. Celery is generally helpful. Celery juice especially. The strongest radish I've been able to see is the Spanish black radish. Daikon may be next so. Watermelon radishes are also great. And the little red radishes are great. And in a pinch, you could use raw turnip. I don't know too many people that even grow turnips anymore, but turnips are in that same family and they kind of could be used in a pinch. So we have this old test from the standard process people that I learned a lot of clinical skills from 10, 15 years ago. And we used to say, if you take cod liver oil and you burp it up a little while later, that means you've got a stomach and a gallbladder weak issue. So generally with radishes, a lot of our stomach mucosa and the lower stomach upper duodenum is just contaminated with bugs, to be honest, because of lack of secretions. And so I'd say just keep plugging through it, because it's clearing out some waste. And that's the other thing you can do, is do not overeat during these times. Because why? Because if you're overeating, your cells are going to get access to a certain amount of that food. And then most people who overeat, they're feeding them the pathogens. And I used to have sugar cravings after every meal 20 years ago. It was like, wow. Every meal I'd crave something sweet afterwards. And my teacher at the time was, oh, that's just the candida yeasty beasties begging to be fed. And wait, slow that down. You said what? Yeasty beasties living inside me wanting to be fed? I got so grossed out. Like, what? Yuck. And after all my intestinal work, I can tell each and every one of you, I had things come out of me that I wouldn't want coming out of anybody. Space egg aliens, octopuses, black tar. And I can't believe the stuff that came out of me. And I was considered the healthiest person of everybody I know. So make sure, you're not overeating. It's one of the most important things you can do for yourself, and eat protein and fat as your main two things, because essential fatty acids and essential amino acids. There's no such thing as an essential carbohydrate. They don't exist. So remember that, folks. Essential carbohydrates don't exist. Essential fats, essential proteins, and vegetables. That's your three staples. And water, maybe your fourth. And then these times are going to clear up. There'll be better times coming ahead. I can almost guarantee you that. And then you can go back to the bonbons and the coffee and whatnot. And the smoke will be gone. And this is all a bad dream, hopefully. I'm looking at the positive outlook here, of course. And that's another thing, is having a positive attitude as a layperson, is finding something to be grateful for when you're in that stew of like, oh man, it's just so negative and fear. And like, every morning, every night, when I wake up, when I go to bed, I say at least 3 to 5 things I'm grateful for. And I do it until I feel it. It can't be all contrived. Feel it. Like, I'm grateful for my mother's love. I'm grateful for that hug I got. I'm grateful for the grace of being able to remember stuff, because that's grace. I'm grateful to grace. It's a great thing to be grateful for. The quick and the easy is peppermint is my personal choice for almost any gas or intestinal pain. I really love peppermint. The little pure mints are great. Puremints, pure mints. They're kind of low in sugar and they got a lot of peppermint oil in them. Really effective. For you do-at-homers, 6 drops of peppermint essential oil, 6 drops, and 1 tablespoon raw honey. And just do a little chopstick of that peppermint infused honey. That's excellent. And then the other one is to fast. Fast on bone broth until the gas goes away. It might take a few days, but that usually means there's too much overload in the system, and just to clear it out. If it's wintertime, you fast on broth. If it's summertime, you might fast on juice, especially where you guys are in the valley in the hot weather. Here in Santa Cruz, it was like 65 yesterday and 69 today. It was like cold. Weird. So that would be a bone broth day, right? Versus, who wants juice on a foggy, cold day? Like, ugh. I mean, you might put some garlic and ginger in it and warm it up, then you got spicy juice, I guess. But most important thing is make sure you get enough fluid. Make sure that you're keeping your bowels moving. Constipation will certainly affect your lungs and your ability to breathe. I'm going to stand up and show you guys something real quick. So see, when you see this going out, that means this is filling up. It is filling up this way, this way, this way, and to the back. So a lot of back pain is in swollen intestines. A lot of inability to breathe is swollen intestines. So I can't say enough about, and how do you know your intestines are swollen? Well, if you feel bloated, they're swollen. Look at your tongue. Okay? Mine are always swollen. That's why I have to eat impeccably. And so the other point is keeping yourself from doing the things you normally would just take for granted, like coffee, alcohol, staying up late. Let's see, what are some other habits out there? Over smoking, overstimulanting, too much screen time in front of these things with the blue light. And don't underestimate being around radiation fields. We're constantly being bathed in a non-ionizing radio frequency radiation. We call those cell phones, routers, Wi-Fis. You know, generally those are very, very bad for your body's ability to take in oxygen. It affects the electron on the oxygen molecule and knocks it off the orbit a bit, so your red blood cell can't absorb it as easy. That's one of the weird things about co-blab, as I'll call it, is the hypoxia that seems to be also affiliated with 4 and 5G. Really kind of disgusting. We're not being told that, but there are lots of studies on it. So getting out in nature, you know, if you're around smoke, try to get to the forest if you can, somewhere where there's trees. And that will also be, as a summary, trees are going to help filter that smoke out. It's like in the Santa Clara Valley, you know, Willow Glen. Willow Glen's lots of trees around there, right? So everybody drive to Willow Glen tomorrow. Laugh out loud. And you people up in Sonoma and Mendocino, you know, go hang out under the redwoods, you know. You're going to get a lot more bang for your buck in terms of the air. I'm really sorry to hear Willits is on fire nearby there. It's a bummer. Okay, next is some herbs. So the layperson simple is radishes. Any kind of congestion, think radishes. It's the easiest thing on the planet. I have a radish salad, which, thinking of a summer, is a good time for that. Chop your radishes up, add some lemon juice and olive oil, chop some apples up, chop up some olives, mix it all together. That's a pretty good radish salad right there. I've gotten people who literally hate radishes. I'll make that salad, let it sit in the fridge for 24 hours and then serve them a bit. And they're like, I could do that. Because of the apple and the olive oil, the lemon juice, and the olives kind of drowns out that bitter, spicy, unhelpful radish flavor. Because we have time, I'm going to share a radish story because it's just so funny. So a dear friend of mine, she has two kids, and the older girl she's a sugaraholic, you know, 11 years old, and you know, some of you parents know, and there's no stopping that sugar addiction. So we're at the farmer's market a few years ago, and you know, she wants a honey stick. Hey, mommy, I want the honey stick. Okay. So we made a deal with her, and we were being filmed on. We were doing a filming thing. So I said, hey, let's give her this honey stick this time, but then we're going to make her eat a radish afterwards. So the way this works is a practitioner in the Santa Clara Valley, I forgot who it was, used to say, if your kids want something sweet, give them one primal defense and give them one lactic acid yeast afterwards from standard process. The sugar draws the yeast out, and you slam them with something afterwards. And generally that helps sugar cravings. I've seen it work really well with kids. I don't know that primal defense is all that much available anymore, but I know lactic acid yeast is from standard process, and you need kind of both. So the radish kind of made up for that. And so the look on her face, she's all happy having the honey, and then time to pay the piper, I come up with the radish. And this is a great representational story. Her face turned into just the look on her face. And I had the cameraman stop for a second. Hey, cameraman, you got to stop. Freeze that photograph right there. I go, that's what the bugs in her body look like right now. Because they're getting slammed with the radish. Those are called thiols. Think glutathione. Anything spicy has thiols. Raw onion, raw cabbage. Although it's that spicy, you know, sulfury flavor that's in onions and cabbage family. Those are called thiols. That nourishes your own glutathione. So that's a really easy, simple right there. Eat radishes. If you can, raw vegetables are better than cooked in terms of nutrition. If you can't digest raw vegetables, then try a juice. A really simple smoked juice might be radish, celery, carrot, apple. You can throw in a leafy green in there too, like kale. If you want something a little spicy, some mustard greens, something a little more mellow, you know, lettuce. So lettuce is sedating though, folks. A lot of people that eat salads with a lot of lettuce, they don't realize that they're constipated because lettuce has opioids in it. So if you eat salads a lot and your bowels still aren't moving, you need to change from lettuce to arugula. That's another little, you know, because your bowels are so important for your lung function. Let's see. So that's your Mullen was the herb we were using as a general one-size-fits-all for this. And then radish would be the one-size-fits-all for getting congestion out. Then if you're dry, like from the smoke's making you dry, then seaweed tea, miso soup, seaweed salad. And the two easiest ones to find are kombu, K-O-M-B-U, and wakame, W-A-K-A-M-E. Generally very nourishing. Slimy vegetables too, like okra, can be helpful when the smoke's bothering you from dryness. And fat. Don't underestimate the value of raw butter when you feel dry. Oh my God. If I don't get enough fat in my diet, I actually have sciatic pain. I have neuritis and stuff if I don't get enough fat. I'm one of those rare blood type O's, metabolic type, protein type. And if I go over 150 grams of carbs a day, I'm just a nightmare. So I'm more of a fat person than I am a carb person. I'm one of those rare kind of people. Most people are kind of in the middle where they can get the fat or the carbs. So hydration will be important here and nourishing the yin. One herb that nourishes the yin that's really easily available is Rehmannia, which is the Chinese foxglove root. Prepared Rehmannia. I'll spell that. Rehmannia. Prepared Rehmannia. It'll look black. Mountain Rose Herbs carries it. It's very cheap. And this is the Chinese foxglove root. It's a toxic plant for the most part, except the root isn't. You know, our English foxglove, digitalis, oh my God, incredibly toxic. But the Chinese version, this is a very thousands and thousands of year old yin tonic. I can't recommend it enough. You just boil it in water and you can make anything you want with that black water. It's wonderful. Tastes pretty good, kind of sweet. Then there's your lymph stream. And so radish acts as a decongester, but it also decongests the lymph. Mullen does the same. But to add an extra bang for your buck, I'm suggesting a few herbs, one of which grows in the mountain here, and that's Figwort. 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 If you can't get Figwort, use radishes. Or you could use even echinacea as a decent lymph herb. Use cleavers. Use poke root. You can get almost any of these in liquid form in a tincture. From myself or almost any retail health food store will carry them. I pretty much carry all of them because I have to. Then the final is the process of diaphoresis that I wanted to show. This is the process of diaphoresis is this. This is the process of what berry energy does. It's astringent. So you see how it shrinks everything down. This is astringency. So everything shrinks. Diaphoresis is the opposite. Out. So your main diaphoretic herbs, again, we'll go just review that list. The mints are really easy. All the mints are great diaphoretics. Elderflower, a little less well known, but generally my favorite. Holy basil, tulsi, chamomile, catnip, lemon balm for the kids. I will say that I do a cleanse every season. So the lung large intestine cleanse is coming up October 2nd. You can inquire about that. I pair the organs. We do a seasonal cleanse. And so the dominant organs of the fall are the lung and the large intestine. So any problems that you have with your colon or your lungs will be magnified in this coming season. That's why they call it cold and flu season, because people are out of balance and their colon and their lungs are balancing themselves out in the fall. And finally, I have a clinical training program being launched. Again, that's part of what I was talking about earlier, and that starts September 28th. And so if you want to learn what I know, that's going to be a 2 to 3 year process of me teaching it, and it'll rotate. And any information, you can reach out to Karen or myself. That this will all be recorded too. And generally, just remember to love yourself. I mean, just so self-love is just so important right now. Be easy on yourself. It's a great free way to keep your energy high. Oh, I made a mistake. Big deal. Instead of shaming yourself, which is what I used to do. Oh, you idiot. I used to say that to myself. And that's like, no, made a mistake. I'm okay. Really important point. Your breath is always there. I told a client earlier, stay close to your breath. Stay close to your breath, and you won't lose your consciousness that way. Check your mind. When your mind's racing rapid, that's when your breath is going shallow and rapid also. Slow, deep breath will slow the mind down. It's an old yogic technique. You're welcome. So everybody, I saw a few more questions about how to figure out how to get a hold of me. Just remember the website that's in the chat box, and in the recording, we mentioned it a few times, healthalchemy.com, HEALTHALK as in kitten, EMY.com, healthalchemy.com. And that's the apothecary right back there. That's all the herbs I grow in bottles behind me. You can see there. So you too could have a custom herb blend.